Hello, Abnormal Investigations. It's good to talk to you all again and to share another encounter with you. We have something pretty exciting coming up planned for Friday. We're going to be doing a pre-recording which will be released. I'm going to hope for this Saturday night, and I want to release it as a premiere. Um, the lady that's going to be coming on, she is a strong supporter and subscriber of the channel for a long time. Her views are going to be different than a lot of our views. She is a psychic, and here at our channel I've told her that she will be safe because that's how we are here. We're not mean people that attack people based on what they believe or what they do. We're here with an open mind. It doesn't mean that we believe what other people do, but we should also keep our mind open to things so that we're able to learn, because knowledge is power. So I'd ask that everybody treat her with respect whenever you watch the premiere. She is a very kind person, and I believe that she has some very interesting things to share. I look very forward to that interview, and I believe you guys are going to be very impressed with some of the things that she has to say. Let's move on to this encounter, guys. I think you're going to enjoy this one. It really made me think of something, and I will let you all know what it made me think of at the end of this, and I'll see if you all agree. Mike, I watched one of your episodes where a person was having trouble with some beans, and they was using their outside water well also. I would have never have shared this if I had never seen that episode. Or heard that episode, I guess I should say. I don't have little beans, but let me tell you what was going on my farm. We were having farm animals go missing. Our chickens mostly, and now and then a baby pig. One night at dinner, my wife and my child was sitting at the table with me when my 6-year-old looked at the kitchen window and started crying and screaming, "Monster, monster." I turned to see what she was looking at, and that's when I saw it. Large eyes reflecting in the window, staring back at me from the darkness outside. My heart started to pound. My wife grabbed our child and pulled her close, trying to comfort her. I slowly got up from my chair, trying not to make any sudden movements. I approached the window, and that's when I saw it. A tall, hairy creature with eyes that were as large as an owl's, that looked as if it was ready to hunt at night. It was standing just outside our kitchen window, staring at us with an unblinking gaze. It was definitely canine, and definitely part human. I tried to speak, but I had no words. I tried to yell at it, and I couldn't get nothing to come out. My wife was crying now, holding our child tight. The creature didn't move, didn't blink. It just kept staring at us with an unnerving intensity. Suddenly, it vanished, disappearing into the darkness that I had just watched it appear from. My wife and child were still crying, and I knew I had to do something to protect them. But what would you do against a creature like this? Who could you call that wouldn't think you was crazy and try to take your children and say that you're mentally insane? The next morning I went out to investigate. There were footsteps. And here's the weird thing. They were human, no doubt. They were 11 inches, but the weird thing was that they had long toenails that ended in points like a large bear. They were 7 inches at the longest one. That's a huge toenail or a claw, whatever you would want to call it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The footprints were unmistakably human, but those toenails were something else entirely. I mean, who has toenails that long and that are pointed? It was as if whoever or whatever made those prints have been growing them out for years, letting them curve and sharpen like claws or talons. I followed the prints, trying to see where they led. They went deep into the woods, winding between the trees. I had to push aside branches and fight my way through the thick underbrush, but I was determined to find out where they went, what had threatened and scared my family so bad. As I walked, I carried the old lever-action 4570 that my father-in-law bought me as a wedding gift. This thing, let me tell you, it packs a punch. I noticed that the prints seemed to be getting fresher. The mud was less dry and the edges less crumbly. I was getting close to something. I could feel it. Suddenly the prints stopped. They just vanished. I looked around trying to see where they went, but there was nothing. No sign of movement, no hint of what might have made those prints. It was as if whatever it was doing, it had just disappeared. I stood there for a long time trying to make sense of what I had just seen. Those prints and those toenails. What did it all mean? I knew I had to tell someone, but who? Who would believe me? Then I noticed one of the prints was off. This thing had backtracked in its own prints. So I followed them backwards, and they finally led me to our old family water well, and they disappeared right at the edge, as if it had dove into the well. That's when I thought of the encounter that you'd had on your show, Mike. I remember the episode where you talked about creatures that could hide in plain sight, that could blend into their surroundings and disappear. And then it hit me. The well. It was the perfect place to hide, to disappear. I approached the well cautiously, my heart racing with anticipation. As I looked down the well and as I peered into the darkness, I couldn't see anything out of the ordinary. But then I noticed something strange. The water was still, not a single ripple or wave, as if something was holding its breath, waiting for me to make a move, like maybe it was under the water because I could see bubbles coming up. But then I thought to myself, surely not. There's nothing at the bottom of this old well. I hesitated for a moment, wondering if I should investigate further, but my curiosity got the better of me. I found some old rope up at the barn, and I started to lower myself down into the well with my eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. As I descended deeper into the well, the air grew colder and the silence grew thicker. I could feel what felt like eyes upon me, watching me, waiting for me, and then I saw it. A pair of eyes in the darkness. So I went back up and I ran to the house, and yes, Mike, I was effing scared, damn it. The next night, it was back at our house. It was growing. And then it started growling. Then the front doorknob shaked like it was trying to get in. I had my 12-gauge shotgun, double-aught buck, of course. Then it tried the back door, and we could smell fish so strong. The smell was like old dead fish in a ditch or a pond. Then the next day, I went to the well with my friend Ben. We decided to check the well together. We were armed and went down the well, and there was a tunnel that ran from the well. It was a large tunnel, just like the one in your previous video, Mike. So we followed it. And when we followed it, it went to the river. And it dropped out of the high bank side. This thing was going from my well to the river. The water was only about knee deep. I thought it would be deeper, but this water was only knee deep all the way to the river. We went back to the house, fired up my backhoe, and we filled that well in with tons of dirt. And yes, it has also now stopped at my house. These things live beneath the ground, and that makes me wonder, is that why people are never found? As we filled the well in with dirt, I couldn't shake off the feeling that we were dealing with something very evil. The thought that these creatures living beneath our feet, moving undetected, was unsettling, and now, with the well sealed, I wonder if it had trapped it or forced it to find a new route. The idea that these creatures might be connected to the missing persons cases really bothers me. Were they abducting people, dragging them down underground? Is that why they're never found? That is a horrific thought, Mike. Very horrific. And to what those people see and in total darkness, underground and lost. It bothers me to even consider it. I looked at Ben, and he seemed to be thinking the same thing. We knew we had to tell someone, but who would believe us? The authorities would think we were crazy, and the locals, well, it could cause a panic. And that's all you need is a bunch of mobs going out with a bunch of high-powered rifles, hunting anything that moves in the dark. As we stood there trying to make sense of it all, I realized that we had stumbled onto something that wasn't supposed to exist. Or is it something that's supposed to exist? It hasn't been back, and we haven't seen it anymore. And I pray that we don't again, that this has took care of our trouble. But Mike, I'm glad I saw your episode, because if I had not seen your episode, I would have thought that I was crazy, and I would have never told anybody this story. I just would have filled the well in. But how many more people are having this trouble, Mike, that are afraid to talk? I hope that me coming out and saying this will help others to be able to come out and tell what's happening at their houses. I hope at least this will do some sort of good. You know, this really made me think a lot of things. Number one, I got to thinking about at my granny's house, she also had an old well. And I'd never thought about that. But she really did. She had an old well out at the back of the house that they used to use, that they don't use anymore. And as far as I know, it's still out there. Another thing that it really made me start wondering is when he talked about them living beneath our feet. Not only in the country would we have to worry about these things, but what about the cities with the large underground sewer networks they have? Do you think it's possible these things have tunneled into those and are living in there? And people that say that they see all these things down in there, maybe they really are. And the people in cities now that are having encounters, Jordan, he was on one of our shows, and he, is in town, and he also saw one. I wouldn't be surprised if they're not using our own sewer networks as their own highways. And that's where we could definitely be drugged down in through a manhole and taken to a side tunnel, and God knows where you would end up at with all these cave networks around. Just gives you something to think about, and it is a scary thought. I want to thank you for sharing your story, everybody. I hope that you will enjoy the premiere Saturday night. I look forward to visiting with you all in the chat as it plays. Surely and hopefully I will have it out by Saturday night if everything goes well. I want to thank each and every one of you for sharing us out to your Facebooks and your social media. It really helps our channel grow by giving us that, connection with everybody else that you all know. We appreciate that. And each and every one of you that does that, you are a part of this channel growing, and we thank you so very much for that. And until next time, everybody, keep your head on a swivel. Don't be something's dinner, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for everything. We'll see you on the next one.